What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Earn Your Couch. We got episode 14 with Coleman and myself. If you're realizing that Coleman is not in the frame, that is because someone hit a power line near his house, and it's a bummer because it disrupted a conversation that was flowing pretty good. We had the opportunity to dive into work a little bit in career, but really we talk about imposter syndrome and balancing between being proud of the areas in which you've grown and where you feel confidence, but also feeling dumb and lack of confidence because there's all these new opportunities and challenges. And the understanding that imposter syndrome doesn't really go away, but that confidence is going to come from having that undeniable stack of doing the things that you say you're going to do. And a lot of that comes down to how you show up. And so we tie that into our values and how important it is to align with those values, because you're always going to feel like you don't know enough or you're not smart enough. And so how do you balance that imposter syndrome of being dumb and not knowing how to do the next thing on your plate, but also having the confidence because you have a stack of proof? I kind of wrap it up with a little bit of a monologue recapping my recent newsletter that went out on Substack that was all about defining my values and why defining those values was a good exercise for myself. So I hope you enjoy. Sorry for the random break in conversation, but let's get into it.
Like very recently, the past couple of weeks, what I've personally been struggling with career-wise is just imposter syndrome effect. For example, I feel I've really excelled in what I'm doing, and I also have a huge role / responsibility / purpose in my portion of the company because I'm responsible for a lot of clients and the service itself, what we sell to people. And being a young person in my career, almost there's times where I feel like, oh man, I shouldn't be in this position. Like I feel like at the end of the day, sure, I have X amount of experience and knowledge and all these things, but at the same time, there's sometimes where I say stuff to somebody who's 15, 20 years older than me, and I'm like, man, should I be in this position where I'm at? Like, do you know what I mean? Kind of questioning your ability almost. When in reality, I know like what I'm saying is true. I know what I'm saying works. I know how I explain things like makes sense. But it's just battling that fight between, am I good enough for this? And it's cool. I talked about it. We have a team meeting once a week, and do you know what the PI is? The predictive index. It's like a personality assessment in a way, but it kind of predicts the way you will fit in a working environment. So on one of the calls we had, we talked about my predictive index. And I took it probably over a year ago now, and we were like rating out like all my characteristics. So like each thing got read out, and I was like, dang, that's spot on. Wow, that's really spot on. Yeah, that's really spot on.
Holy
Man, I
shit.
took this a year ago. I feel like I've changed so much, but it's still spot on. And then that's kind of where the imposter syndrome comes in, where it's like, I feel like I've learned, adapted, and changed and have grown so much in the past 10 months. But I've also kept the same leadership quality, and I feel like I've gotten better at being a leader. But I've kept the same type of initiative to be like, I'll do it if no one else is going to do it. Like, I can do it. I've kept the same ability to like want to learn things, and the curiosity in me is still there. And then at the same time, I felt like I've actually just changed so much overall as like a person, both career-wise and outside of my career. Like I wasn't nearly into being healthier in terms of what I ate, and in terms of the types of like activities I did on the weekends, in terms of the workout routines and all these things that I do in my own personal life last year at this time. And I came to the realization that it's crazy how much you can change and still stay the same in terms of your core values as a person. And that kind of relates to the imposter syndrome thing, because I feel like I need more experience to be able to say these things, to be able to say XYZ thing about Google My Business, when in reality, I know that platform from the back of my hand, right? Like I shouldn't feel that way. And so I remember on that call, I told my team about imposter syndrome, how I'm feeling that. And then everybody was just like, oh yeah, that never goes away. Yep. Never goes away. Even when you're 30, even when you're 40, even when you're 50, even when you're 60, like
Mm.
you'll never feel you'll always feel like you can be doing more or you can know more or you shouldn't be in the position you're in because of that ability that you have to want to learn and get better,
Mhm.
you know? And so for me, I am trying to figure out how can I still be proud of the things I've been able to do in such a short amount of time? How can I still feel satisfied with the fact that I am growing quicker than I thought I would be? And then also like be proud of the fact that I want to keep being better and not have that effect of feeling like I shouldn't be where I'm at, like I'm not old enough to be here. I don't have the experience to really be here. You know what I mean? And it's like finding that little space to be proud of yourself. There are times I'm proud, but I want to feel more like, yeah, I've been able to do this and I'm excited to keep getting better than half the time feel like, man, like I'm almost too young to be saying this type of thing, you know?
It's real and it doesn't go away. Like your coworkers were saying. It's funny that's what you wrote down or, expressed what you're struggling with because in journaling recently I wrote down what I'm struggling with is that feeling dumb or inadequate is also oftentimes step one to being very good at stuff. So that doesn't mean the things that you're already good at and the imposter syndrome that you're feeling towards those. I think that starts to shift the more evidence you have under your belt in that thing. And so you can be able to rely on or think about Google My Business and all of the times you've had success with other customers, despite your youth. You can be like, well, I know that works. And then the imposter syndrome will then shift to the next thing that is a new responsibility. I know that you have people leaving your team and you're taking on new customers. So that might be new customers, understanding their business, their personalities, that interactions. You could feel dumb again, even though you know Google My Business well. Taking on and understanding, if you have to manage other consultants or train other consultants and you haven't had to do that before, and you could be like, yeah, I'm good at this stuff, but I'm not going to be able to train anyone on it. Like I've never done that before. And so that imposter syndrome, I think, let's say, is continues to shift. You start to gain confidence in certain things that you've started to build up your resume on. As you grow in your career, if you're growing in your career, that realistically means that you're feeling dumb a lot or often
Right.
because you're constantly being handed new opportunities, because you're being handed new challenges, or not handed, you're taking on opportunities that are handed to you and you're doing them to the best of your ability. And someone who has the value of growth and someone who has the value of wanting to do a good job and someone whose predisposition is to be stressed, like, of course you're going to feel like, why me? How am I supposed to do this? And then you do it for a week and then you look back on all the things that you grew and learned from that. And then in 2 weeks you look back and you feel like, holy shit, like I'm constantly feeling dumb, but the things that I was feeling dumb on, I'm constantly now shoring up those defenses. And I think there can become a piece of knowing, one, that it's okay to feel that way. And that's what I wrote down of what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with feeling dumb or bad at something and then reminding myself that this is how I become good at something.
Yeah.
Because when I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know how to fucking train someone. And then you're like, all right, how to train someone. Hey, and then you start asking other people, like, do you have any resources on like how to best like train this? Or how did I get trained? How could I do this better? Then all of a sudden you've been thinking about it for a few hours and you look back and someone's like, hey, how do you train someone? And you go, well, I think you could start off with, introducing like the main objective of what they're, all of a sudden you have a little bit of framework, you have some mental models for yourself, your synapses are firing. And then I feel that when I can start to connect the dots on things that I was dumb at, that's just like such a fun dopamine hit of when someone is explaining something and then you go, oh yeah, just like how blank, 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 blank. And they're like, exactly. And you're like, holy shit balls. I didn't know shit about earlier. And here we are. But yeah, I would imagine with the amount of customers that you're taking on at once and just the stress levels of how do I fit all this into my current schedule that's already busy. Plus figuring out where all those businesses are at in their marketing strategy or their growth goals and their size of their companies, what they're currently doing, what they're going to be doing, training people at the same time. Like there's a lot added to your plate all at once. And so when things aren't happening quickly, it's very easy to be like, well, why am I doing this? Like, I don't know how to do this. But
Yeah.
at the same time, those core values that you have of growth, curiosity, of just being proud of how you show up. That's what made you a dumb consultant on day one, now have all this confidence in the things a year later. And that is also going to be the common denominator that you experienced from your PI test, that you're going to feel dumb on day one with more of a manager role. But in a year, you're going to be like, well, yeah, of course they fucking gave me that assignment because of who I am, I'm going to be the person to figure it out.
And I think kind of the past week or so, I've been noticing like the actual value that I provide.
Mm.
And I'm reading this book called Ikigai.
Yep.
Ikigai. You heard of it?
Ikigai.
It's
Finding your
Japanese.
meaning, your purpose.
Yeah, Japanese word for purpose. And like I just started to realize like I enjoy helping people like be the best versions of themselves, like meaning like coworkers, like someone saying, "Hey, I'm going to be gone this day because I'm taking the day off to go see my mom. Is anybody willing to take this?" And I'm just like, "Yep, I got you. I'm happy to make your life easier for you to go do the things you want to do by taking on an extra meeting or two that day." I know empowering like adding value to their lives as well, they eventually that value will get added to my life too down the road. But in terms of like overall value, I've noticed for me at least, like the things I say, the things I do have actually really helped businesses grow.
Mm.
And then also the fulfillment in them hearing me explain a specific strategy and why it's effective, they're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense." Like, so for example, I was looking at a Google ad campaign and somebody had roofer near me in their headline of the campaign, which means when somebody looks that up on search as a search result and roofer near me pops up as the headline that they would click on, like in reality, as a consumer, as a homeowner, are you really going to click on the roofer near me headline or are you going to click on free roofing estimate as a headline? Someone's probably going to click on the free roofing estimate one instead of the roofer like near me. But like that little explanation and like diving deeper into explaining
Mm.
why like you shouldn't use that specific keyword and bid your money on that. Sorry, not bid your money on that keyword, but write that keyword in your headline. And they were like, that makes so much sense. Like, yeah, I'm for sure changing that. That it's that fulfillment of like they actually appreciate slash take what you say as a valuable thing and it does help them in the long run. And so like recently I've been taking on a ton of clients, which has been really fun because I enjoy working with people, but it has added that extra level of stress. But at the same time, I've decided like I've shifted my brain around, oh, it's another client. That means I have to spend another extra 2 hours a month meeting with them. That means I have to do all these other like admin things. That means I have to do audits. But instead, I like switch that mindset into being like, oh, okay, how am I going to be able to help them? You know, like what marketing channels are we going to start on? What do they know? What do they not know? Okay, they don't know what Google LSA is or like Google My Business. They don't even have one going. Let's definitely get that set up for local SEO purposes.
Mm.
And it's made it more like exciting and then fulfilling when they get to that point. And so I've noticed my value overall the past like and especially now that I'm moving up and I'm taking on more responsibility and I'm excited about it, but also hearing from my COO talking about how he wants to just train me to be a really good leader and get me into a leadership role and make me the best version of myself. And that's like his goal for me. However he can help me, that's what he wants to do. Like being in a position to be able to take on more responsibility and provide more value for the company is something that really excites me, right? Is like I want to help grow the company, but also at the same time grow my own internal processes and systems that help me help other people slash coworkers slash clients, you know?
For sure.
And for me, I've never looked at my value because for me, it's imposter syndrome. I'm too young to have a ton of value. You know what I mean?
100%.
And so it's been the battle between imposter syndrome, but then also the awareness the past week of I do have I feel like I am a pretty valuable asset and I should be more proud of that and I should thrive more with that. I lean into it more, you know, and be like, how else can I provide value? You know,
Well,
how can I continue?
there's also like you are yourself, and you, especially being in a remote role, like you kind of only see
Yeah.
the way that you do stuff. And then because you and I both have high expectations for ourselves, like we show up in a way that I resonate with what you're saying a lot of just trying to help other people be the best version of themselves, taking the extra time to teach as opposed to just do, taking on something that is burdensome but helpful to the whole team. And I think we're both loyal people.
I
But it
really like what you said right there though. How you take the time to teach
mm,
because I think that's exactly what I do and what I enjoy doing, where I find that fulfillment. Because you can easily just say, upload photos to your Google My Business every week. Make sure when you upload the photos, those photos are named. But instead, I dive deeper into that. Like, you need to be uploading those photos, specifically name them, because that does help the search algorithm understand what those photos are. But more importantly, when you're actually uploading photos, you're letting the Google algorithm know that your business is active, that you're using the profile. So it's really important to do this every week, or else they're not going to show your profile. And
right.
that's when they switch happens, right? They're like,
I love seeing that
okay,
switch.
right?
Yeah.
Right? And then it's not only the switch of them going, that makes a lot of sense, but also them appreciating you taking the time to explain it. Because without the explanation, the importance is never there. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I need to do that, but how important really is that to do? Right? I have a lot of other things.
And I think that's the flip side that you don't, or that's the value that's hard to recognize as the person who values teaching. Because from a company perspective, they have a consultant who's working with their customers. And there could be two consultants, one that takes the time to teach and wants to like see that click in the other person's eyes so that they understand why they're doing it. Not only does that increase their own fulfillment, which makes them like working with you, but it also increases the perceived value that they're getting from the services, which keeps them longer. And so there's that version of a consultant. And then there's the other version of the consultant that doesn't take the time to teach. And so there is a value discrepancy there. But because you only see your own, like, of course I'm going to fucking take the time to teach. Like, it makes sense. It's enjoyable. Like, that's what I like to do. Well, how do you put a or a number? How do you quantify that value? And that's the challenge, but that's the thing that you're blind to until you have enough experience to where you see how other people do it and you're like, that's not how, like, that's a bad job. Or you
Right.
see like, shit, that's a better way to do it. No wonder, they're 5 years ahead of me, and that's something that they picked up along the way, but that increases their value. Now you take that, your value is increased, but then it just kind of becomes embedded into how you do things, and you don't recognize, once again, the discrepancy that creates with how someone could do it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's cool to recognize, because I'm sure you're a year in now. I'm a year into my job literally on Monday or Tuesday. And the types of conversations that you're having with your leaders, the types of suggestions that you have on how to improve the business, the types of issues that you can diagnose with relative ease because you've seen multiple customers do the same thing. Like, all of that is value. It's quicker time to value for the customer, which creates, more raving fans, which creates higher value for your company. But also, like you said, you're creating value for the company by improving yourself, but you're also creating value for yourself in the long term by improving yourself and keeping that growth mindset and seeing new customers not as, oh, that's another 2 hours to my month, but as seeing it as,
So what can
let's get these guys right. Let's figure this out.
right. Like, what? I'm
And it's
excited to dive in.
and it's your company's job to put you in a position where you can show up with that mindset, right? Because if you're always showing up with like, I just gotta fucking check the box so that I can move on to the next thing,
Right.
now you're not able to provide the value that you can provide.
Right. Yeah. No, it's true. And it's a struggle. It is a struggle to, because talking about it all like now is like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Right. Right. But while you're in it, in the process, and you are tired because working is tiring, it's no easy task. And you're in the middle of it. And there's times where maybe you're like, oh my God, I want to be outside today and I want to just go chill. Right. You got to remind yourself, "Oh, yeah, like I'm doing this because I've been able to grow XYZ for the past 10 months. And every time like I get that fulfillment feeling is when the clients I'm working with are like, thank you so much. Like this was super helpful. Like, oh, I just learned a ton today. Like, thank you so much." And you're like, oh yeah, like this is like it's just every single day. If you can just get one person to be like, thank you, this was very helpful. You're that's why you do it. You just it's helping those people. It's educating those people. And I think I get it from mom and dad being teachers, honestly, because sitting at the table, understanding like why I couldn't solve 17 times 4, and dad sitting there going, "No, no, no, let me explain how. Like let me explain how we got there." Instead of me just guessing numbers, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you
It's
definitely
that
didn't guess
process.
numbers. Just 65, 40, 22, 9, 15.
Well,
It's
what do you think
17
I'm gonna
times
do?
4. Why are you voting? Why are you guessing underneath 17?
What do you think I'm
3.
gonna do? You think I'm gonna just solve the problem by
Yeah,
doing
I'm
it
just
the
gonna
right
do
way?
17 times 2, which is 34, and then double that to 68. That's too difficult.
Too many steps, man. It's so much easier to just be like, it's gotta be like 78, right?
Yeah, you're
No.
close.
All right, 92? No. But it's that. It's taking the time to explain the why of like every specific process and or like why that specific strategy doesn't work anymore or why the specific setting is a really bad setting to have on a
Rather than just going, nope, nope,
yeah.
that's not gonna work. That's just
Nope,
not gonna
sorry.
work anymore.
Sorry about that. But yeah, it's really hard to it's really hard, honestly, to sit here and go, I'm really proud that I'm able to do this because most of the time I'm like, I want to get better at this. I'm not that great at it. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's hard to recognize the things that you've been good at or you've gotten good at because there's things on your plate that you're not good at
Right.
again,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the constant, I think, for maximizing growth and fulfillment and not like being burnt out. Like it's finding that equilibrium of having enough under your belt that you're feeling more and more confident every day, but having enough that's challenging you to where you're growing towards something else, but not so challenging that you're just like, I'm absolutely lost. And not so easy to where you're like, I'm good at everything that I do every day. Because that's boring too. I mean, I guess there's different seasons. Like, there might be good times where you're getting a really new project and you're like, wow, I'm completely fucking lost. And that's okay. But I think for the most part, if the days are there's a quote of confidence does not come from shouting affirmations in the mirror. Confidence comes from an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are and that you do what you say you're going to do. And so if you can, even if you're not good at, if you don't know how to do something, but you have confidence because you're like, I'm going to learn it or I'm going to figure it out because look at all these things that I've already figured out, then it's almost like a blind confidence because you've never, like, I'm just using that example, but you've never trained someone before. Yeah, but I've done all these other things that I didn't know how to do, and then it turned out to be okay. So now I can go to this new thing and be like, yeah, I don't know how to do it, but it's going to be okay. Has to be. Oh, no. You froze. To get coffee while you're frozen. Well, unfortunately, Coleman's power went out, and so we'll see if he can come back on at some point here. Probably a multi-hour thing, and so I think in the meantime, what I'm going to do is really just share something that I think is worth sharing. It ties into a lot of what we've been talking about on today's podcast, which kind of came up generically or organically, I guess is the right word, with what Coleman's been struggling with and thinking about and starting to realize. And I've had similar realizations in the past. And that is that life we grow, we change, get new jobs, we move to new cities, things happen, which often results in constantly feeling, dumb, or constantly feeling like a little lost or unsure of what's next. And I think that is the human condition. A lot of people are expecting to have things figured out because the people in the movies have it figured out, or the things that you see online have it figured out, air quotes. But there's a lot of things that are just kind of big world questions that are hard to define and hard to have concrete answers. But something that Coleman referenced, and something that I've gone through the exercise recently, an episode with Skylar, I talked about how I started working with a life coach who's a good friend. And one of the things that we did early on is trying to define our values, my values, because really they serve as your North Star in a world full of ambiguity, in a world full of decision making on a regular basis. There's constant decision making, and there's not a lot of, real hard answers, definitive things. And so one of the things that we can do, that we can define, or at least take a stab at defining, it's not going to be perfect, but something that we had to do was write down our values. And it's not the first time that I've heard about these values, the importance of it. And when going through Intersect, we had to define our company values. And I'd done it before, but I always felt like it was this kind of, I have to define it and it has to be right. When I'm stressed, I become a perfectionist. And so when there's no clear answer, I can get stressed because I've always been someone who likes to know the answer before I take action, to know that I'm going down the right path. But that's not how the world works. That's how school works often. But I've realized that that's not how life works, and that's okay. And so one of the things that I've been, really prioritizing is taking action in the face of ambiguity, and trying to figure out how to continue to operate and to put my best foot forward, even though I don't know shit. Recording a podcast, don't know anything. Hopefully it's gotten better over, a few months, but didn't know anything about that. Just started. Don't know anything about newsletters or writing. Got started. Didn't know how to run a business. Got started. Didn't work. Moved to a company that I didn't know anything about in terms of the subject matter expertise, about software implementations. Not that I didn't know nothing, but I was no expert, but I had to step up and take on a new role. But coming back to the values and the defining of the values, and there's no right answer, but as I've grown older and as I've gone through and experienced more of life, I think there's been an opportunity for some of these values to resonate deeper, and I have proof now that this is how I show up in a variety of situations. And so to define those values, this is taking it off of my May 14th newsletter, which is on Substack. My 5 core values that all have kind of subcategories are growth, health, joy, connection, and loyalty. And because I have a hard time really defining it, I gave myself the opportunity to give some subcategories. And so under growth, we're looking at learning and sharing, having a growth mindset, and then constantly improving my circumstances. And this is not having a desire for, I need to be rich and famous in order to be content, or I need to have the bigger house, the nicer car in order to be happy. But it's improving my circumstances from the perspective of gaining more career opportunities, making it so that life is more comfortable in ways, or whether it's improving my space, my environment, improving my relationships. I look for those growth opportunities in a lot of different ways. And I think that overall improves my circumstances. The second one is health. I just think we have one life, and it doesn't mean you have to be perfect. God knows I'm not. But if I can feel good mentally and physically more often than not, and also improve my opportunities to live a healthy life for a longer period of time, then I think as a human being, it's our responsibility to do that. And in a free country, it's our right to be able to do that. But no, most people don't. And that's their choice. My third is joy. I tell people at work all the time, like, I'm here to do a damn good job, but I'm here to have fun while I do it. If you're just there to talk about work, or if it's all tactical or logistics all the time, I think it's boring. I think it's a waste of hours that you spend, 8 to 12 hours a day, doing a job. Like, if I'm not going to be joyful and have fun while I'm doing it, then what's the damn point? And so under joy, we have humor as well as gratitude. I think gratitude creates joy, not only for yourself, but also for others. And then also a kindness, both to myself and to others. I think when people are kind and people are funny and when people have gratitude, there's a lot of opportunities for joy. My fourth value is connection. Under connection includes community, empathy, and honesty with myself and with others. I think an honest connection is the most valuable connection. If I feel like I can't be honest with someone else or that they're being dishonest with me, there's just a kind of constant kind of buzz of anxiety or discontentment. Similar with empathy, and it's if I don't feel listened or heard, that relationship's kind of potential is diminished because then I'm going to be short with them and they're going to be short with me. And if I don't feel like they understand me and I understand them, then that connection is much, much less valuable, I guess. And then community. I'm a social being and it's okay to try to find community in things. I think one of the reasons we started podcasts is to connect with others, share the clips, to create a community of people who have the same mindset of Earn Your Couch. It's a curated community. It's a made up community, but it's one that even at this scale has brought me joy. Just people reaching out, saying how things have impacted them or things that they've thought about because of something that they heard from us. It started a lot of really cool conversations. And then the last piece is loyalty, family, friends, and then loyalty to myself. That's, I think, doing things that are aligned with my values and being authentic. I've always been loyal to my friends and my family. I can confidently say that, I was the person to take care of friends when they needed it, to show up for them, to help them move, to prioritize them over strangers. So I always valued when other people, reached out and helped and prioritized me over strangers. But I think most recently I'm learning that there's a loyalty to self as well that I haven't necessarily been good at, because sometimes that means lowering loyalty to others, which, as I just said, has been a priority of mine. But it's being able to say no to friends, to activities, to be able to make choices and actions and decide how to show up in a way that's just being myself. And that's at work. I never want to fit into a need to do this, be this, act like that. There's a system that I'm a part of and I will play within that system, but I'm going to be my damn self in that system for sure. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to connect with people and have opportunities and do some cool stuff in my career that if I wasn't myself, then I don't know if those opportunities necessarily would have showed up, or I definitely wouldn't have had as much fun along the way. So I'm sharing this list partly because after I wrote the list down, I realized that a lot of what I do has to do with sharing gratitude, sharing humor, sharing kindness, sharing what I learn and how I'm growing, sharing with honesty. And so I think this life is meant to be shared. And I think I love what I get out of sharing with others, and I hope other people get value out of what I share with them, because I know that people have shared with me that have changed my life and made it better. Not perfect, but better and improved. My circumstances have improved. And so I'm sharing these values because in reality, it wasn't that difficult of an activity. It just took a little bit of intention. It took someone, a friend, to facilitate and kind of make me do it. But doing it, I've realized the value of defining those values and being able to make decisions and understanding the activities that are coming up or how I'm spending my time. Does it align or misalign with what I believe to be core values right now? Those values are growth, health, joy, connection, and loyalty. And the more that I do that allows me to live in alignment with those, I think the better life will be. So obviously, Coleman didn't come back from someone hitting a power line. So it might be a shorter episode between the two of us, and it might be an opportunity to have a little monologue from your boy. First time doing that.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Earn Your Couch. And you know what? If you made it this far, you're one of the true listeners. So Jacob and I just want to say thank you. We appreciate you for sticking around. If you haven't already, give us a follow at Earn Your Couch on Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube. If you have a family member or maybe a loved one or even a friend that you think would benefit from the conversation that we had today. We would really appreciate it if you shared this podcast with them. More importantly, if you are earning your couch, feel free to tag us. Tag our Instagram account at Earn Your Couch. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.